It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.
Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
Welcome to the mother of all talk shows, coming to you live from Moscow. Behind me, the mighty, though frozen Moscow River. Behind it, the even mightier Kremlin. But let me assure you, Mr. Starmer, no sanctions are being broken in this broadcast. But we are very glad to be in sub-zero temperatures, taking the temperature of the so-called peace process in the NATO-Russia war, being fought over the dead bodies of well over 1 million people in Ukraine. The story breaking over the last couple of hours of the mass slaughter of innocents in a Canadian school, 10 dead, 25 wounded, many of those in critical condition, the death toll expected to rise. We'll be looking, I'm sure, at the causes of these repeated North American disasters, although, of course, they are not confined to North America. And neither is the liberalism that precludes honest and transparent reporting of events like those in Canada earlier today. It was 15 minutes into scrolling The Guardian that I discovered that the killer was a woman in a dress, although, of course, that is a flat-out lie. The chief of police in the Canadian town where the massacre took place described the killer not as a gunman, not even as a shooter, but as a gun person. Well, it's perhaps typical of the great sickness that has occupied so much of the Western world, that there's more concern for not misgendering a mass slaughterer, a mass murderer, calling her him instead of her because she put on a dress, than there is for the blood of the innocents still warm on the steps of the school. Not much concern for the innocent blood that was shed by the Epstein class over decades, now being revealed in the tumbling dice of the Epstein files. All kinds of horrors lie beneath what seemed at first a mere revolting sex scandal. And much blood may very well be shed in the hours, days, perhaps a week ahead, as the United States continues to build up its military power in the Persian Gulf, and the Islamic Republic of Iran girds itself to resist and indeed to go on the offensive. It's all coming up here on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Stay tuned.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the Mother of All Talk Shows, the only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the Mother of All Talk Shows, with George Galloway. The world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
A 17-year-old trans student massacred 10 of her or his classmates and teachers in Canada in the early hours. It is a mass slaughter that will be remembered because Canada traditionally does not suffer as its neighbour to the south suffers these kind of repeated events. But somebody somewhere has to get to grips with what the priorities are when such horrific events occur, either in Canada, the United States, or for that matter, in Great Britain. No good is served by hiding the gender, hiding the ethnicity, hiding the potential motivation of the killers, the perpetrators of such events. It merely deepens the cynicism about official authority and official information in a way that discredits the official status of those who tell us that the gun person killed themselves. It is monstrous, and it's, more importantly, stupid, because 1 minute on X or on social media revealed the truth about the slaughter in Canada. 15 minutes of scrolling The Guardian revealed the straight falsehood that the killer was a woman with a dress. The killer was not a woman. Had the killer survived, there would have been no case whatsoever for that killer being sent to a women's prison. We are going to have to come to grips with this trans mania. Now, I'm not suggesting that it was the trans mania that made this person murder all those people. I have no idea what triggered this madness. But I do know that hiding the truth and hiding the facts is a bad look for states which are telling us that we should turn away from X, turn away from social media, maybe even ban X, ban social media, stick to The Guardian instead when The Guardian is lying by omission of key facts that they are fully in possession of. But much, sadly, more importantly, the continued circus in the Oval Office, the big top, the Oval Office of the White House of the United States, where the greatest ballroom in the history of the world is presently under construction. Donald Trump is leading a merry dance of the pitiful specimens that call themselves journalists in the White House press retinue. When he says that the American economy has never, ever been as strong, he is lying. Why don't the journalists say, you're lying, Mr. President, when he says that petrol is such and such a price, when in 99% of gas stations it's far more than that? He is lying when he says that he's cleared by the 2,700,000 pages of the Epstein files so far released. He's lying. He appears in those files tens of thousands of times. His relationship with Epstein and with so many of the oligarchs. How come oligarchs only live in Russia? Aren't they all oligarchs? These people who wield disproportionate political power by virtue of the money in their pocket, however they procured it. Why are only Russians oligarchs? The Epstein class are all oligarchs. Some of them are billionaires. Bill Gates, he's fingered, if you'll forgive the pun, in the Epstein files almost as much as another multi-millionaire. Bill Clinton, almost as much as another multi-billionaire. Donald J. Trump, though most of his billions have been earned whilst President of the United States of America. Go ponder that. So many tumbling dice in the Epstein affair, it's hard to know where to start. Chris Hedges will be along very shortly, and he'll help us with that. But one of the main takeaways for me was Jeffrey Epstein in writing saying, I have known many bad people in my life, but I've never known anybody more bad than Donald Trump. He has no scruples. Now, when Jeffrey Epstein thinks you have no scruples, when Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile, sexual predator, and trafficker of underage children, girls and boys, when he thinks you have no scruples, well, you must be a rum individual indeed. But then we already knew how rum Donald Trump was, but the evidence that's tumbling from these files doesn't just fall on him. The British royal family, in a poll this evening, have fallen below 50% approval rate, 45% in fact, as low as ever in my lifetime, as low perhaps as ever since polling began. The British royal family is in a state of chaos, not knowing whether to turn left, turn right, go forward, or go back. And so, largely, they're keeping stum. It's difficult to know how they could do anything other. But much more importantly, the British government is in a state of collapse. Sure, Keir Starmer is filled with braggadocio. He rolls up his sleeves and unbuttons the top button of his white dress shirt, yes, but that doesn't mean he's relaxed. Neither does it mean that his protestations that he's going nowhere mean anything at all. After all, his closest comparator, Liz Truss, said that she was not a quitter the very day before she quit. So this matter will not be decided by Keir Starmer's resolve to continue to misgovern Britain in such a way that he is the most hated Prime Minister in British political history, and that's before the Peter Mandelson, Jeffrey Epstein affair. His approval ratings are only barely in double figures, 10.5% approval rating. He says he has a mandate. Well, of course, he never had a mandate to begin with. Only 19% of the British voters ever voted for him. But if he did have a mandate, it's definitely gone now. The whole country hates Keir Starmer. The main problem the Labour Party has is the cowardice to make sure that his T is out, that he is moved from his position, and the fact that they simply don't have an alternative. The heir apparent, until the Mandelson affair burst on the scene with nuclear effect, is a man called Wesley Streeting. But his problem is he was a schoolboy protege of Peter Mandelson and had a relationship with Peter Mandelson lasting until presumably the last few days. So if you want to turn the page on the Mandelson affair, well, Wesley probably ain't the man to replace Keir Starmer, the only other contender with a seat in Parliament. And they made sure of that with their shenanigans up in Manchester, is a woman called Angela Rayner, who used to be the Deputy Prime Minister, but she too, in the last few months, was forced to resign as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, as the Chair of the Labour Party itself, and as the leading campaigner. She had to leave the government for ethical transgressions to do with a luxury house that she had procured on the south coast of England in Brighton, even though she was an MP in Manchester and already had accommodation in London, where presumably she works. All of that would have been strange enough if she'd properly declared it to the tax authorities, but of course, being New Labour, she did not. So, Starmer is profiting from the fact that there's nobody obviously waiting in the wings that can take his place. It is the anniversary today of the Iranian Revolution, and we'll be talking to the seer, the sage, Seyed Professor Muhammad Marandi, about the incredible celebrations on the streets of Iran today. 25 million people marched across Iran today in celebration of the Islamic Revolution that brought crashing to the ground the Pahlavi dynasty. We can call them a dynasty, but it actually only lasted 2 generations and will not have a 3rd generation. But the Shah of Shahs, the Shah of Persia, the greatest tyrant in a region filled with tyrants, with a secret police, the Savak, more torturing and murdering and maiming and savage than any other secret police in a region filled with despicable, horrendous police departments. The crashing of the Shah, the driving of him and his oligarchs, his comprador, into exile, sailing around the world with no country prepared to accept them, including the United States. A note to other tyrants depending on the United States: when you come crashing down, don't necessarily expect the United States to allow you to enter. The Shah was no more. The Islamic Revolution came to power, has stayed in power, and will stay in power if I'm any judge. We'll hear from Professor Marandi about the latest preparations for war and the potential for a negotiated diplomatic solution, thanks to the good offices of my favorite Arab country, the Sultanate of Oman. We'll be probing whether the United States demands against Iran, on Iran, have any possibility at all of being accepted by the government in Tehran. We'll be wondering with Professor Marandi about just exactly what will happen if Donald Trump launches these missiles, launches these fighter bomber aircraft from the aircraft carriers. The Abraham Lincoln, the Eisenhower, they're all steaming towards the Persian Gulf, and we'll be asking what exactly will happen and how will it affect you. there's only time to talk briefly about the country that I'm in. The frozen Moscow River behind me is something of a metaphor for the state of US brokered peace negotiations. Sure, they keep meeting. Nobody wants to tell Donald Trump that there's actually not much more point in meeting, that this will have to be resolved on the battlefield because the necessary conditions for a negotiated settlement are simply not present. The European Union has seen to that. The European Union and Keir Starmer's Britain have seen to it that the pressure on little Zelensky, who knows that peace is the end of him, no more grand larceny, no more noses in the trough, no more corruption, and maybe even the possibility of prosecution down the line as the sheer scale of the corruption of the Ukrainian regime becomes clear after the war is over. Now, people are straining at the seams. I mean, I'm here in Moscow. I'm here to tell you that this place is filled with Americans and increasingly with French people. Macron is the one sending messages to Moscow that we really need to sort this out now. It's gone on long enough. It's gone far enough. We know that all of our efforts have been in vain, so can we please sit down and talk Turkey, find a solution that can bring this war to an end. You can always count on the French to be the first to surrender. But the Americans are here in even greater numbers, and they're all Trump-like Americans. And what they're doing here, they are waiting for the moment when the dam breaks, when the sanctions are lifted, and when Western countries and Western companies fall over each other and fall over themselves to get back to business as usual with the richest country in Europe exponentially, the richest country in Europe, which has just found yet another oil field with 55 million tons of oil underneath it, which has all the oil, all the gas, all the precious metals, all the land, all the agriculture, all the food self-sufficiency that any country could ever want. Who would be such a fool as to be determined to make a permanent enemy of a country like this one? Well, Britain, for a start. Well, I will be talking with Chris Hedges, the man who should be running American foreign policy, but is instead educating you and me tonight on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Stay tuned. There's a legend on the line in Oklahoma. It's May on Trump. Welcome back, May.
Trump is using a magic 8-ball to make his decisions. He apparently has completely lost whatever mind he had to begin with. This is just ridiculous. Does he really think anyone's going to believe that? I'm here to say, and I'm here to join you and everybody else, the emperor has no clothes on. He's as naked as they come. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure he got naked with some young people. And that is why he so desperately is trying to kill this whole Epstein thing. And he's just making it worse.
I'm wondering when Donald Trump knew that he was implicated in these Epstein files and what it was that he knew. That's the big question, because he wouldn't have been banging the Epstein drum all this time and then suddenly to pull the rug. That tells me that it was a late decision, that someone came late to Trump to say, you know, You really don't want to be doing that.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
Well, the person that probably came to Donald Trump first and said, you really don't want to be doing that, releasing these Epstein files, is back in the Oval Office for the 7th or 8th time in the 1-year presidency of Donald Trump. 1 year, 1 month, Donald Trump has been in office, and this is the 7th time that Benjamin Netanyahu has visited him. Oh, to be a fly on the wall. Or perhaps there's no need. Was Jeffrey Epstein a Russian or an Israeli spy? That is the poll question this evening, and astonishingly, almost 40,000 people have already voted on it. And with the exception of X, where fully 1/4 believe that Epstein was a Russian agent, perhaps if we'd included North Korea, maybe on X there would have been some support for that thesis also. But overwhelmingly, people believe, as is blindingly obvious, that Israel was the controlling hand in the Epstein operation. But almost 40,000 people have voted. Now, the result will not be changed by the 24% on X who believe that Epstein was working for Russia, because, of course, overwhelmingly on all the other portals, all the other ballot boxes are overwhelmingly to the contrary. But the 24% on X tells you two things. First of all, it tells you just how badly the Epstein affair is hurting the supporters of Israel. They know that this is a watershed moment. They know that this is a turning point, not just in the USA, but across the world. And so desperately they are seeking to float the possibility that Russia was somehow involved in the Epstein affair and that Epstein was a Russian agent. But of course, what makes that particularly unlikely is that the Epstein files prove that Jeffrey Epstein had to ask Peter Mandelson for help in obtaining a Russian visa. So the quantum is what's important in this poll. So I really am encouraging you to make this the biggest poll ever on the Mother of All Talk Shows. So you can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, on the YouTube stream. And if you're watching on the YouTube stream, subscribe, why don't you, to my channel and give the show the thumbs up. And you can vote also. If you are one of the advance guard, then you are a supporter of mine already on patreon.com/George Galloway, and your votes can also be recorded there. If you want to call the show, it's toll free in the United States and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It is free in Britain and Ireland, 08081 965522, and the worldwide number 0044203 9662625. The aforementioned Chris Hedges is the political commentator supreme, former head of the New York Times Middle East Bureau, a Pulitzer Prize winner, a man with more finesse in his little finger on foreign affairs than little Marco Rubio has in his entire body. How I wish Chris Hedges was the Secretary of State of the United States, but then he wouldn't be joining me now on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Chris, welcome back to the show. I know it's not your kind of thing because your mind operates on a higher level than all that. But how do you think Trump is playing the Epstein affair?
Not well. We know that he's mentioned 38,000 times in the emails. We know that upwards of 1,000 FBI agents were directed to redact the millions of pages of documents and email exchanges to protect not only Trump, but we have pretty strong evidence to protect Netanyahu. And each leak is eroding his denials of malfeasance or criminal activity in terms of the abuse of minors. And of course, we saw, as you mentioned, very concerted effort on the part of Trump to block this latest release, but the erosion of support for that blockage within the Republican Party crumbled to such an extent that he was forced, although, of course, as I mentioned, these documents are redacted in a way to protect him, he was forced to release them. But they've been cataclysmic, interestingly enough, more so in the UK, in Norway, than in the United States. And that, I think, is a window into the breakdown of democratic institutions, the ability to hold political leaders accountable. I find it fascinating that Starmer is in political trouble. Of course, he was in political trouble before this latest release, and he's not mentioned in the files. Trump is all over these files.
Yes, I mean, why is that? Is it merely the democratic deficit in the US? In other words, the political class can ignore public opinion? Or is public opinion in the US not all that roused by this? Do they perhaps just imagine that those that rule them and own them are these kind of people, and there's nothing to be surprised about in the Epstein files?
No, I think that they are aroused, and you've seen a deterioration in Trump's base, in particular that younger generation, the people who gathered around the assassinated Charlie Kirk, and those people aren't buying it. But there's no ability. I mean, the Justice Department is, Pam Bondi is just sycophant, like most of the appointees, Ludwig, all these other people who are implicated. But of course, the Democratic Party is not free from this stain. You have powerful Democratic figures, former Senator from Maine, George Mitchell, of course, Clinton, and others who are also caught up in the Epstein files. I mean, very sadly for many of us, this latest release exposed numerous engagements between Noam Chomsky and Epstein. So no, it has, but I think it's a window. Whatever the anemic quality of democracy is in the UK, it's far healthier than in the United States, where we don't have the mechanisms by which we can hold our political class, Democrat or Republican, in this case, of course, the Trump White House, accountable, and that's very frightening.
Well, God help you if you're even worse than we are, but there is no story other than this in the British media and in the British political class, dominating, and of course, the ripples of it revealed that Starmer didn't just appoint Peter Mandelson to the plum post in Washington, knowing, as he must have known, as he must have been told by our security services, the depth and darkness of the relationship between Mandelson and Epstein. It's like London buses, they all turn up at once. There's now a new scandal of a man that was appointed by Starmer to the House of Lords as a member of Parliament for life, having been an important official in Keir Starmer's office, who turns out to be as thick as thieves with a convicted paedophile, repeated sex offender, indecent images, all the horrors that we're seeing tumbling out of the Epstein affair. Now we've got our own homegrown one. And that dominated Prime Minister's questions today. People in Britain are concluding that our rulers are filthy degenerates. They're not just betrayers. They're not just disappointments, letdowns, sellouts. They're also filthy degenerates. And that's not far off the mark in your country or in mine. I mean, it is a bit surprising that the White House lawn is not thronged with people with pitchforks right now.
Yeah, no, I think that, and you saw before during the campaign, the last presidential campaign, there was a huge push by Trump's base, and of course he promised to release all of the Epstein files, a huge push by Trump's base for transparency over what had happened, because people suspected correctly that across the political spectrum, Democrat and Republican, these people were and are corrupt, filthy degenerates. And of course, this confirms precisely what they suspected. Now, what's going to happen? There are still millions of documents that have not been released to the public, defying a congressional demand. The Justice Department says this is the last dump, but is it? You are seeing a kind of chipping away at the Trump image, and you're getting closer and closer to Trump culpability, and he's mentioned so many times. And then we have testimony. These women have been bought off, but there was one, I think her pseudonym was Kate Miller, who claims that Trump raped her when she was 13 years old, and with very kind of awful graphic detail. She has since disappeared. So where is this going to go? This is the one thing that could probably destroy Trump, and I think the reason is because sexual abuse of both boys and girls in the United States is rampant. I did a book on the Christian right called American Fascists, the Christian Right and the War on America. And what was fascinating, I spent 2 years on the book, and I was in all the mega churches and Right to Life weekends. And I didn't put it in the book because it was anecdotal, but I would say almost 90% of the women that I interviewed for that book had suffered sexual assault, sexual abuse. And so it hits close to home personally for many people within the Trump base. It's just something they can't overlook. And George, we have, because when the FBI went into Epstein's mansion in New York, he had a safe the size of a closet. And we know that there were stacks of CDs that had recorded, because he recorded everything in these bedrooms. Why these figures like Gates and others were so stupid to go up into a bedroom in a mansion, mystifies me. But that's not been released, and it says unidentified. They redacted the name of the girl or the woman, but many men. I mean, and of course, we have a PM a prime minister. I don't know whether they specified the country, so it could be Boris Johnson, as you have suggested, but it could be Ehud Barak. He was there a lot too. He's also prime minister, with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. I mean, that's a tape that would put you off sex for probably a decade. But we know that these videos, and those have not been released.
Now, you and I have discussed before the really quite obvious decline in Donald Trump, in his mental acuity at least. I saw him on television last night saying that he had put tariffs on Switzerland because he didn't like the way the Swiss Prime Minister had spoken to him. Remarkable enough reason in any case for putting on tariffs. More remarkable because Switzerland does not have a Prime Minister. This decline in Donald Trump is dangerous, is it not? After all, your country and its military machine is poised for war in multiple theaters, and the guy who's the commander-in-chief is quite obviously beginning to lose his marbles.
Yeah, well, that is just a continuity with the previous administration. We have two presidents one who was completely or pretty much senile, and the others who is rapidly approaching senility. What it means is that, and this has, I think, been true throughout the entire Trump administration, is he's not running things. He's impulsive. He'll make certain decisions, but all of these people grouped around Project 2025, unfortunately, who are quite competent and know what they want to do, are dismantling the state, eviscerating the most basic civil liberties. I mean, we are watching American citizens being gunned down in the streets of our cities by death squads. There's just no other way to describe these goons with ice, with their faces covered, killing with impunity. 96 court orders in the month of January in Minneapolis against ICE, all of which have just been ignored. And that's extremely frightening because it just shows that there's no constraint within the judicial system. There's no legal constraint. These people can run roughshod over law, and there's no accountability. And that, of course, is the portal into any authoritarian or police state. Indeed, it defines police states. So I look at what's happening in the UK, and the UK is a pretty decrepit democracy. But I look at that juxtaposition with where we are, and I see us barreling down towards this black hole with almost nothing to stop it. And I think that the Epstein releases have just confirmed it, and it's very, very scary.
Now, we lack time, alas. I could talk to you all night, but we've got a big enchilada to talk about, and that is the Persian Gulf, an area of your specialization. As I said in your introduction, Pulitzer Prize winner, New York Times Middle East Bureau. With all of your experience, expertise, and touch for these matters, is Trump going to attack Iran in your view?
There's heavy opposition to a war with Iran within the Pentagon. That has always been the case. To the extent Netanyahu wants it, of course, in the same way that he wanted the war with Iraq. The creation of these failed states has become Israeli policy, whether that's in Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere else, in the idea that this increases Israeli military dominance throughout the region. Iran is the last kind of country with any potency to challenge Israel, and so there will be a heavy push. Trump is beholden to Israel, not only in terms of massive amounts of donations from Miriam Adelson, I think $100 million, but let's be clear, and this is another issue, it's a question to what extent Epstein was working for the Mossad and for the Israelis. I think that having read through much of the correspondence in the emails, it's clear that he was extremely close to the Israeli intelligence service, whether that meant he just fed them stuff gratuitously or whether that meant that and of course Ehud Barak used to run Israeli intelligence, but there's clear links. So the question that many of us have is, does Israel have this kind of compromising material on Trump, of which we expect or assume that there's quite a massive volume? It's an unknown. Trump is mercurial. He's impulsive. He changes his mind 3 times within an hour. I don't rule anything out, but a war with Iran does have heavy opposition within the American military establishment. It would go about as well as any of these other debacles in the Middle East, and potentially not only be quite onerous or punitive towards the United States, but a war of attrition is something that Israel cannot endure. Iran clearly inflicted damage. The last time that the Iranians and Israelis and Americans went at it, and the Israelis worked, as you know, quite hard to cover up what was hid, and not just the Weizmann Institute, but other areas as well. So I don't have a clear answer, but I think that the pressure that Israel is able to exert on Trump is significant, and Israel wants it.
This is the seventh, if not the eighth, visit in Trump's second term that Netanyahu has made. You could, perhaps a working thesis might be, if Trump was already sold on the war with Iran, he wouldn't have needed to come back. One thesis I hear and read is that Netanyahu is worried that Trump is not going to go to war with Iran. What's your take on that?
I think that that is correct, that Trump is leaning in the other direction, and you see that with his support for the negotiations. Of course, the United States apparently is demanding that the Iranian nuclear program be completely dismantled, which Iran is not going to accept. And I think that we can't stress enough that Israel has a formidable nuclear arsenal. And the idea that Israel, a hostile state, is, and of course they did it by defying by essentially building it in secret, and by allowing Israel to dominate or hold nuclear weapons. I mean, why did they go after Saddam Hussein and not after North Korea? Well, we know the answer to that. I think you're right. I mean, Trump is hard to read, but it does appear that he's not inclined to go after Iran militarily. However, again, he could wake up tomorrow and, he's not consistent. There's no consistency in Trump at all. So in that sense, he's so impulsive and he's so stupid. It's very, very hard to read.
Well, he could wake up tomorrow with some videos under his pillow, slipped there in the night by Netanyahu. The right. Compromat may be unlimited, bottomless.
Well, it's just enough to know
Chris,
that they have them.
Yeah, of course. But one last question,
how they got
just because you're a very...
That's how they got Waldheim. The Yugoslavs had all the records of Waldheim as an SS officer.
A savvy guy. You're such a savvy guy, Chris. Let me ask you this. I had never heard of Jeffrey Epstein before until the beginning of these problems. You will have, because you're based in the USA, but it's quite clear to me now that Epstein was a much more important figure than most of us ever imagined. This is a guy at the center of everything and everybody. Anybody who was anybody in that part of the polity was connected somehow to Epstein. Even, as you say, our former comrade Noam Chomsky was in bed with him, metaphorically speaking. He was involved in multiple international theaters, Ukraine, Somaliland, potential coup against Putin. He even had a candidate picked to run for president of Russia. This was a very important guy, and who seemed to rise without trace. How is that? What was he? Who was he?
That's the enigma. He's uneducated. He never finished college. That doesn't mean you're uneducated, but he's not well educated. You can see he can barely write English, constant grammatical spelling errors. That is the question. And there have been investigations into the source of his considerable wealth, much of it coming from Wexler, who owns Victoria's Secret, clearly, but maybe other sources. That we don't know. I think what these Epstein files elucidate is that there is a depraved, corrupt, ruling global elite that has created a club that has locked the rest of us out. I mean, one of the fascinations for me in reading the emails is how tawdry and you use the word correctly, depraved these people are, because we don't get a look into their private life. They have lawyers and publicists and all sorts of ways to create a public face that is at complete variance with their own moral decay. And that's what these emails expose, but not just, of course, the American political elite, but the British political elite, the Norwegian royal family, the British royal family, out of the Middle East, wherever it is. But they are all these, this is the billionaire class or the servants of the billionaire class who unfortunately are running the world, and as they are, as large segments of the population are waking up as to who these people are, they are rapidly imposing authoritarian states. I mean, in the UK, you have, through Palestine Action, people thrown in prison for nonviolent civil disobedience. I mean, this is really, and of course they went on hunger strike and they violated all sorts of UK laws to hold them there on remand without bringing them to trial, etc. This is also true in the United States. So that's what we're seeing. As these elites are being exposed globally, these elites, they are reaching for the lever of police tyranny, police terror, even in the United States, to retain control. And I think that's what this moment, this particular historical moment, furthered by the Epstein files, elucidate.
Yeah, the Epstein class may well do for them all in the end. Let's hope so. Chris Hedges, as always, a brilliant tour of the horizon, a tour de force, as always. Thanks for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Let me take a quick break, then take a call from Tunisia, where Wahid asks a question about the Board of Peace. Whatever happened to that Board of Peace? Take a break. Be right back. I think you don't have to worry about these things with Mamdani, because my overwhelming feeling is that Mamdani is a phony. He has as much intention of doing these things as, I compare him to a figure in British Labour history who became briefly famous in the US when Joe Biden was found to have plagiarized him during a presidential run some decades ago. But that man's name was Neil Kinnock. He used to talk all this flowery, far left guff like Mamdani does, but he had no intention whatsoever of actually doing anything about it, of doing any of it. So there's no chance whatsoever that Mamdani is going to defund the New York Police Department.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
Well, it may be our first ever call from Tunisia. And I'm very glad that Wahid made it, because he wants to raise a very important issue. The Board of Peace. Whatever happened to that? Wahid, welcome.
Hello, Graham. George, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, yes, I had a question about the Board of Peace in Gaza. But if I may, I'd like to tell you how I came to know your program. And it was recommended to me by a good friend of mine, an Englishman from the Isle of Jersey, and his name is Graham Howard Anderson. He's been coming to Tunisia for years now to take Arabic classes with me. and his, as he put it, Arabic is his passport in the Arab world. So and he's written a few books. The latest of them is you might want to take a look at it. It's Robert Fisk, Palestine and Other Lands, a political dialogue. It's quite an interesting book to take a look at. Okay, sorry, I'm rambling. So my question is
No, go ahead. Very interesting.
Thank you very much. Well, as I said, he's a very good friend of mine and a pupil of mine for many years. Okay, my question about the Board of Peace is this. I mean, how come Tony Blair is one of the members on that board? I mean, it boggles the mind, right?
Yes.
I mean, after what he's done in Iraq, it's incredible. And most importantly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've read or heard that Netanyahu, after his meeting with Donald Trump, is accepted to be part of the Board of Peace. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. He signed it last night in front of Rubio. So Trump didn't even have to strong arm him. So we've now got sitting on the Board of Peace the man who directly murdered hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza, but now he's on the Board of Peace. But there's an important dichotomy opened up today, Dr. Waheed, and it was this. When asked, does Israel intend to take back control of the Gaza Strip, Netanyahu said, we certainly will. Now, that contradicts Trump, because Trump's Board of Peace is based on the fallacy or otherwise that they are the new owners of the Gaza Strip. Of course, international law establishes that neither of them are the owners of the Gaza Strip, but Trump and Netanyahu cannot both control the Gaza Strip. If they do, presumably they'll lose most of the rest of their board. And so the issue you raise is a very live one. But yes, Netanyahu signed on to the Board of Peace in front of Marco Rubio last evening. Go ahead, last point, Waheed.
Okay, that's about it. I just wanted to tell you how. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand what's happening in the world. How can that war criminal be part of the Board of Peace? It should be Board of War. I mean, it's incredible.
Yes.
The people that are in there.
Well, they may get bored. They may get bored of peace and return to large-scale war. Let's see. Waheed in Tunisia. Thanks for the call. Now, you can leave comments for the show, by the way, on the QR code there on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, that is. Neil GZ sends £5 Many thanks, Neil. Says, only anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists could conclude Epstein may have been an Israeli spy, according to BBC Verify. And bumbling Boris Buffoon says Epstein used kids to blackmail the West to get support for Israel bombing kids in Gaza. And indeed, in Lebanon, a tiny little boy, beautiful little boy, Ali, that they murdered overnight in Lebanon, in the south of Lebanon. May God rest his soul. Sam Jaldi, or Sam Jal, Jall, I beg your pardon, Sam, says if he was a Russian agent, he would have been arrested a long time ago. True. And Rafael Simoes says Russia, Epstein is a tinfoil hat thing. And Moss Patchouli says Massey questioning Bondi about redacting Leslie Wexner in the Epstein files, and her turning the question back on him by calling it political says it all. It truly did. This Pam Bondi, what a fishwife she is. She was behaving it was like a stairhead brawl, as we say in Glasgow. A fight between people at the head of the stairs in a tenement building. It was a stairhead brawl. She was fishwife in chief, and the way she was talking to the elected members of the American Congress left no room for doubt at the contempt she at least holds them in. Hanan is down under in Sydney, and she wants to talk about the protests in Sydney, which have been unbelievably brutally handled by the Australian police. Hanan, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, George. Good morning for everyone. George, I was at the protest, and I really almost all the time I was there. All the people whom they were in at that protest, they were just beautiful people. They didn't do anything to break the law. George, when I arrived there, I just found out like a wall of police, and I just saw they didn't let us in. There is some people, there is protesters in that town hall place, and after, I mean, where is the people? Behind the people, there is all those surrounded with police. However, then I just saw also people waiting, like waiting to let the police allow them to in. So I was standing with them, with those people waiting. Then about maybe 15 minutes, then the police allow us to in. And then I understood later that there is thousands of people. They were waiting, but police, they didn't allow them. So what you see, which we've been about 40,000, that's not the whole number whom they were there. That's right. Thousands, they were behind that line of police that they made. I promise you, George, and I'm telling you all the truth, that I didn't witness any protester said anything wrong. Just beside the Free Palestine, the president of Israel, he's not welcome here. Everything just like this, and then police with no reason, they began to brutally hitting especially whom they were at the first lane, hitting the protester, and even if you can see some, lucky that there is some people videoed what happened. That an old man,
yeah.
They just.
I have actually seen it. I do follow events in Australia quite closely. Our cousins and kith and kin and all that, and I do actually have relatives living in Australia, in Western Australia. So I do follow things quite closely there, and I can only conclude that Australia has gone mad. The level of police brutality for what are massive pro-Palestinian demonstrations, when the supporters of Israel are so few in number in Australia. I mean, so it's definitely not about votes. There are far more votes on the pro-Palestinian side, virtually no votes on the pro-Israel side, and yet the Australian state is being bent out of shape. Its laws, its courts, its media, its political class are bending themselves in contortions never before seen to stand up for Netanyahu's Israel. It beggars belief. And of course it's a worldwide thing, but the Anglo-Saxons have definitely got this sickness worst. Britain, Australia, the United States are so welded, umbilically connected to this tiny settler state of European apartheid settlers in the Mediterranean. It beggars all belief and leads you into some dark corners. It makes you suspect the darkest things as to why these politicians can possibly be acting against their own interest, their own country's interest, their own personal and party interest, to the extent that they are. Hanan in Sydney, a very good morning to you. Let me talk about the Moats donors, because they are, of course, the only way in which this show continues to appear. And I want everyone to think about that. These donors that I'm about to read you, if they did not make these donations, I could not be here and you could not be watching. And you are watching now in absolutely record numbers. Last Sunday's show was watched by over 5 million people. And Wednesday's show, not much far behind it. The weekly numbers now of Moats knock into a cocked hat any comparable show, but not enough people are pressing the button and making a donation. Something that cannot be said of Robert Harker, Albert Perez, Victor Oritz, Robert Brown, and Johnny Comerford, who gave most generously. Now I want you to scan that QR code now. That'll take you to a website so easy to navigate that even I could do it, and just press a donation. Something, anything, £1, $1, €1, you decide. Paul is in Salford, home of the mighty Reds, and he wants to talk about the UK political system. Let me squeeze him in before the break. Paul, welcome.
Good evening, George.
Good evening, brother. Go ahead.
Good evening. Yeah, the United making a dramatic comeback. Wonderful. The political system, coming back rapidly. The political system in this country is, well, it's corrupt, it's bent. Now, you're the same age as me, mate. We were both born in August of 1954. You are highly skillful in politics, as you've been doing it all your life. I've just been an observer, but I'll tell you, this green and pleasant land, it may be just as green, but it's becoming more and more unpleasant, and I'm very, very depressed about what's happening in politics, and I firmly believe that they should drop the right honourable ladies and gentlemen and just call them Miss, Mrs. and Mr. What do you think?
Well, that's the least of the problems that we've got, but of course you're right. Honourable is the last thing that the vast majority of them are. Many of them should be in prison. The rest of them should be out of Parliament. That is for sure. They are the very antithesis of what a Member of Parliament is supposed to be. A Member of Parliament is supposed to be a man and woman, or woman, of independent mind, who makes their mind up on the facts of the issues in front of them, and is not easily bullied or bribed by the powers that be. And that's as far from the current British Parliament as it's possible to imagine. So it's a green land. It's still a pleasant land. It's filled with pleasant people. I don't love the rocks or the earth. I love the people of Britain. I love our language. I love our literature. I love many important parts of our history. I love our books. I love our music. I mean, I'm here in Moscow. I went for a shave today in a barber, and virtually all of the music that I listened to in the barber in Moscow came from our green and pleasant land. Our culture, our music, our literature, our language, our poetry, these things matter to me, as does, of course, the Premiership and the rise and rise again of Manchester United. My life revolves around my wife and children, my work, and Manchester United. And that keeps me going with a spring in my step these days. Paul, thanks very much for the call. Let me take a quick break because we've got a very special guest on this very special day, the anniversary of the revolution in Iran that swept away the tyrant Shah and has now stood the test of time. Professor Seyed Mohammed Marandi coming up right after this short break. Stay tuned. I don't believe that the mainland European countries give a toss about Britain, and I'm certain that the United States would not sacrifice itself for Britain. That's why I say Britain is completely marginalized. As for the Trident missiles, of course, if the United States, which has dual control over these missiles, gave permission for them to be launched, of course, they would incinerate Russian cities. But what good would that do us? Because we'd all be dead, including the people that fired the missiles. You feel me?
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
He is as constant as the Northern Star, and his unique mix of determination and serenity in the face of some of the worst beasts of the so-called mainstream media, the man who's faced them all and bested them, is Professor Seyed Mohammed Marandi, and he joins me now, not in the studio, but in Moscow. So we were together just, I think, last evening, Professor. So good to see you again. But this is a very auspicious day in your country. Tell us about that.
Thank you very much for having me, George. It's a great pleasure and a great honor being on your show, and I've had the privilege of being with you, your wife, and your son last night. It was a great pleasure meeting them as well. Yes, today is an important day. It was the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. I really love this city. Moscow is beautiful, but today I really wanted to be in Tehran, and the crowds were extraordinary. There were millions of people on the streets of Tehran, 4 million according to estimates, and tens of millions of people on the streets across the country. I posted some of the footage on my Twitter account, and it shows very clearly where ordinary Iranians stand. And that is exactly why Western media, Western pundits, Western so-called Iran experts will not cover the rallies today across the country, because it runs against their fake narratives on the country, that it is the so-called regime is falling apart and the people hate the regime and it's collapsing. These are just narratives that they use in order to justify aggression. Western media is controlled by the Epstein class, it's controlled by the Zionists. It doesn't matter if it's so-called left or right, the mainstream media is controlled by these people, and the narrative on Iran is clear as day. But those who want to seek the truth, all they have to do is look at the images of Tehran. After 47 years of war, sanctions, terrorism, and the difficulties that life has. I mean, if you ask those people on the streets of Tehran today, is life good? Is the economy doing well? I'm pretty sure 70, 80% of them would say, no, it's difficult. But despite all that, and despite the West imposing all this hardship, they come to the streets and defend in defense of the revolution, in defense of the Palestinian people, and in opposition to the regime in Washington. And I think I was very.
It is quite brazen, Professor. I mean, it's more than lying by omission. It's brazen falsification to not report to the viewers and readers that they have been telling for weeks, months, years, decades, that the Islamic Revolution was hated by the people of Iran. My best estimate from all the sources that I've read is that between 23 and 26 million people were demonstrating for the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. Now, for Western media to not report that is brazen falsification.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when they were claiming that first 10,000, then 20,000, then 50,000, then 80,000 people were just being gunned down on the streets of Tehran, even though there was no internet and they had no names and no information. So they were more than willing to lie about numbers, when in fact it was Israeli intelligence and Western intelligence agencies that carried out those atrocities. They boasted about it. Western media pretended that these intelligence agencies were silent. The footage was out there. They didn't show it. They just pretended that these were peaceful protesters. And the reason for all that is to demonize Iran. The reason for that was to create the grounds for invasion, for aggression, for murder and death and destruction. And what the people in Iran did today was say, no, we support the Islamic Republic of Iran, and don't start killing us in the name of saving us. And that's exactly why they don't want to show it, because it rejects the whole premise of the argument. What the West is saying is that we have to destroy Iran to save Iran. And the Iranians are saying, thank you very much, we are fine where we are, and leave us alone.
It is, of course, a moot point, but Donald Trump, it seems to me, and Chris Hedges had the same view just a few minutes ago on here, Donald Trump does not actually want to go to war with Iran, not the least because of the consequences for his very generous friends in the Arab countries in the Gulf. After all, who's going to shell out the gold and diamonds and pearls to him and his son-in-law on subsequent visits to the region if all these regimes have been swept away? So Chris and I both believe that Trump is not signed up to use the hardware that he has so expensively dragged all the way to the Persian Gulf, and that's why Netanyahu is in the Oval Office right now trying to strong-arm him, either by compromat or by other means. What's your take on that, Professor?
I think that's absolutely correct. I think that the military officers and the generals and those in the know would tell Trump that, look, if there is war, the Iranians will destroy the oil and gas facilities, the ships, the tankers, they'll shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And these tiny family dictatorships which host U.S. bases in the Persian Gulf, they will not survive. You have Qatar where the regime has 350 to 400,000 passport holders and millions of foreign workers, mostly adult males. The Emirates has 1.4 million passport holders and 10 million foreign workers, many indentured servants and workers and semi-slaves, and mostly adult males. If these regimes become unstable, it's clear what will happen. So Kushner and the Trump family, they are making enormous profits from the Persian Gulf region, from whether it's Qatar or the Emirates or Bahrain. They're making huge amounts of money. And if these regimes are swept away, then that money's gone. But also, if Iran shuts down the oil and gas trade, then the price of energy will go through the roof, and that will bring down economies across the world, and it will be Trump that people blame. And I don't believe at all for a second that Trump can mobilize public support for any war against Iran. Those days are gone when you had to go to the U.S. Senate and stand up to senators to expose them for their fake excuses to attack Iraq. Now people don't trust the regime in Washington. The Epstein files, which every day we're seeing new bits and pieces that discuss this more and more, Americans are seeing it too. Everyone knows what the reality of the political class in the United States is. So I don't think at all that Trump can persuade Americans to back him for war. And as soon as things go south, people in the United States will blame him for it. So I think that both because of his own selfish interests in the Persian Gulf region, and also because of the fears of what would happen to the economy, he definitely does not want war. But we were negotiating with this guy months ago. Between the 5th round and the 6th round of negotiations, he was conspiring with his close buddy Netanyahu to attack Iran. So Iran is going to be very wary. It is not going to be deceived. The armed forces are preparing for the worst. But I do believe that you're absolutely correct. He is personally not interested in war.
Now, you mentioned the Epstein files, and you were, of course, formerly a professor of American studies, now English literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran. You have I think, unparalleled in all the Iranians I've ever met, an unparalleled knowledge of and interest in Western societies, whilst being a man of the East, descendant of the Prophet, pious religious man from a historic family and so on. You are actually the perfect bridge between the peoples, at least, of West and East. So let me ask you what you think of the Epstein files and how they relate in particular to your part of the world. I shouldn't be surprised, but it did surprise me that the UAE's first woman diplomat in New York was, how shall I put it, intimately connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and moreover was keen to introduce her sister, who's even more pretty than me, she said, although only 14. I shouldn't be surprised, but actually I was. Were you?
No, I shouldn't be surprised either. I mean, we've been watching a genocide take place and continue to happen right before our eyes every day in Gaza. And we see Lebanese children being slaughtered regularly on a regular basis too. So we really shouldn't be surprised. But some of the things, including what you've just mentioned, are just they still shock us despite everything. And it's not just in my part of the world. I'm in Moscow along with you. All day today, I've been speaking to Russians. I've been on show after show, meeting people, many of them mutual friends, and many are big fans of yours. Literally, George, literally, I'm not exaggerating, literally everyone has been saying that we, meaning Russians, Iranians, Orthodox Christians, Muslims, we are on one side, and these anti-God, anti-morality, anti-human elites in the United States are on the other side. We are on the right side of history, where we support morality, we support religion, Christian and Muslim. We support children. We oppose all these crimes that are being carried out by these people, and they stand on the other side. They are the enemies of their own people, and they're our enemies. It's been so interesting today in particular how everyone has been stressing that we are all on the same side, Russians and Iranians. We're all standing against this monstrous entity, this class of corrupt billionaires and powerful men mostly. And that woman and her daughter, they reflect something much bigger and darker. Most of the Epstein files are still undisclosed, and those that have been released are mostly redacted. It's obvious that what is being hidden from us is far worse than those bits and pieces that we now see. And people are still going through these 3 million files and finding new bits and pieces of horrific information. But it is quite interesting. It is quite fascinating how my Russian friends who are not connected with one another, I meet them separately, and they're all saying more or less the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all proof that Satan is present in the world, that evil stalks the land and is present in the world, and sometimes on top in the world, and would appear to be on top in these elites that you talk about. Prince William of the Royal House of Britain was today in the presence of the very Arabian prince who wrote to Jeffrey Epstein thanking him for the torture video. I'm not making that up, and I don't want to embarrass you or anyone else by naming any more of these rat-like figures, but they don't only exist in the West, do they? They have plenty of accomplices of Satan everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. And the closer they are to the regime in Washington, the more names you see from those entities. The Emirates is the closest ally of the Israeli regime. And both of these messages that you were quoting, whether that woman diplomat or that head of the Dubai ports or whatever that organization is called, they're both from the Emirates. The woman offering her sister, this man showing great pleasure in the torture video. It's obvious that such a regime in the United Arab Emirates should be a close ally of the Israeli regime. It should be an ally of Netanyahu. It should be supporting the genocide in Gaza. That's exactly what we're seeing in these messages to Epstein, that they have no morality, they have no shame, and I have no doubt that these two are the only figures in the Emirates or in the Persian Gulf region either.
Professor, this watch I'm showing you now was given to me by the late and great Sheikh Zayed, the former ruler of the UAE, the man who built the UAE, whose grave I attended quite recently. He built something quite special and quite authentic, but not to put too fine a point on it, it's all gone awry since he died. That's the problem with family dictatorships, isn't it?
Oh yes, and it's not just his; it's Qatar. All of these regimes are playing extraordinarily destructive roles across our region and beyond. The drug trade in Afghanistan goes right through the Emirates. The gold that is taken from illegal mining across Africa, it all goes through the Emirates. In Qatar, ISIS, the home of ISIS and the funding of ISIS and Al Qaeda, it all comes from gas money. That oil and gas money from family despots who, instead of building their own countries, instead of building Africa, instead of building Asia, instead of building Arab countries, impoverished countries, instead of supporting the Palestinian people, instead of strengthening Egypt and neighboring countries of the Israeli regime so that they can stand up to this disgraceful racist regime, they spend it on destroying country after country by expanding corruption, by expanding extremism, cooperating with Western intelligence agencies. That's all they seem to be able to do. And paying billions of dollars to the Trump family and his allies, that's all they can do. They've done nothing. I mean, even Qatar, some people praise Qatar for the World Cup. Some say that the money that they spent was above tens of billions of dollars. They created a huge metro that's empty. They built all these stadiums that are no longer used. They built so many hotels, and they spent billions on a few football games. They could have built countries. They could have changed the situation in across Africa with that sort of money, but they refuse to do so. Instead, they pay Trump's family and his allies money so that they can keep their regimes afloat. They pretend to be supporters of the Palestinian. The Emirates doesn't even pretend, but Qatar pretends that they're supporters of the Palestinian people, but they've never given a single bullet to the resistance. They've never made any sacrifices. If they did, they'd be sanctioned, just like Erdogan and others. And again, the last time I was on your show, George, and I raised this to you last night. I mentioned names, which I won't hear, but you are an exile, and you no longer can go back to the UK. There are people in the UK who pretend to be supporters of the Palestinian people, who supported the dirty war in Syria, who have lots of funding from the Persian Gulf. Are they exiled? Are they in trouble? No, because they are working in close coordination with the regime in London. There's no doubt that the money that Qatar pays, the money that all these dictatorships in our region pay, these pro-Western dictatorships pay, it's done in full coordination with Western governments and intelligence agencies.
No doubt. Well, I'm welcome here in Moscow, as you are, and welcome in China, to which I shall go again soon. And we are seeing the forming of a new world. It's going to be a long labor, I think. We, to some extent, have overestimated both the extent of that new world's formation. To some extent, we have underestimated the sheer brutal force which the United States and its empire continue to wield. But it's kind of obvious to those paying attention that the big tectonic plates have irreversibly shifted. The rise of Iran, the power of Iran, the international alignments of Iran with China, with Russia, with others. These are developments which are something to be proud of. And the revolution that you are celebrating today is, of course, indispensable to that. Your revolution has stood the test of time. Not many other political systems have stood the test of time. So I metaphorically take my hat off to you, Professor. I congratulate you on this auspicious anniversary, and if you have the chance to convey it to your people and their leadership, I'd be much obliged. Professor Seyed Mohammed Marandi, as always, thanks for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Professor Mohammed Marandi, a terrific guest always for us. Let's take a quick break, then it's your calls all the way up to Gayatri's social media news roundup. Stay tuned. He's a schoolyard bully, Piers Morgan. And he does have a big show, but then he has a big and plush and very well appointed studio. And he has a big and very well paid staff. He has a very big budget. He's an extremely wealthy man. And the combination of all of that does give you a certain head start. We, on the other hand, are a mom and pop business. There's just me and Gayatri. And the people who told me the phones are melting are my own grandchildren who are answering the phones for nothing. This is an unpaid gig I'm doing and do twice a week. Nobody pays me one brass farthing to make this show, to present this show. I'm not sure that Piers Morgan would tell you how much he makes.
You are listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows with George Galloway.
Well, I'll give you 5 more minutes to vote on the poll. Was Jeffrey Epstein a Russian or an Israeli spy? Well, on Telegram, 2% believed that he was a Russian spy. On the YouTube community poll, 4%. On the YouTube stream, 4%. On my avant-garde supporters on patreon.com/George Galloway, 0% believed that he was a Russian agent. On X, after much huffing and puffing by the pro-Israel lobby, keen to throw sand in your eyes, 23% believed that Epstein was a Russian agent, as opposed to 98, 77, 96, 96, and 100% on the other column. Let's say 5 more minutes, then I'll close this poll. Simon in London wants to talk about Saudi Arabia and Epstein. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, hi George. Hope you're well, mate. Listen, I've read reports recently. They're quite shocking reports that the cloth from the Holy Kaaba have actually gone to Epstein. Now, whatever satanic ritual he wanted to do with it, that no one knows about, as I said. But here's the thing about Saudi Arabia: they've done nothing at all to help the Palestinians at all. All the bullets in the world have gone to ISIS, and as you described, the alphabet soup of terrorism. Priests in mosques have been arrested simply for saying prayers for Palestine. Of course, with Jamal Khashoggi, your good friend, he was murdered. He was chopped to bits, basically. And despite all of this, Saudi Arabia are effectively trying to normalize relations with the genocidal regime in Israel. Now, my question to you is, George, if Muslims generally have conscience, why don't they boycott the Hajj? Just think about it. If they boycotted the Hajj, what happen is the Saudi Arabia would be left with a massive black hole in the finances. They'd be jumping up and down like headless chickens. They wouldn't know what to do, Why isn't this happening? I'm just confused.
Well, first of all, the religion is more important than the politics for Muslim people, and going to the Hajj is in no sense an endorsement of or an intention to strengthen the government in Saudi Arabia. Everything you said there was, of course, correct, bar one. And it's important that we are accurate on these things. Saudi Arabia has not normalized with Israel. The king and the crown prince, more importantly, for he's really running things, have repeatedly stated that they will not join the Abraham Accords, they will not normalize with Israel until there is a Palestinian state in existence, not on paper, but a functioning Palestinian state. So let's absolve them at least of that crime. It's other Arab countries, and much longer ago than today or yesterday, who normalized with Israel, and some normalized secretly without telling their people or any of the rest of us that they had done so. But Saudi Arabia is not in that position. I still believe that the Saudi people maintain a certain dignity and decorum, if only on Islamic etiquette, not political. And the Islamic etiquette would simply find intolerable a Saudi recognition of Israel, normalization, Israeli flag flying in Riyadh and so on. This is impossible to believe, and I don't think it's going to happen. Everything else you said is correct, but nobody's going to boycott the Hajj. When you ask someone of faith, they will tell you, as I tell you, that one's faith is one's fundamental. It is fundamental to one's identity. I once said in the British Parliament, don't ever dream of asking me to choose between my faith and my country, because if you do, you won't like the result. I will live my life, and I will leave this life as a religious believer, irrespective of politics, irrespective of governments or oppositions. But thanks, Simon. You're right to be indignant. Now, some podcast news. This Mother of All Talk Shows podcast is breaking all records. I still can't quite believe the stats that I read out to you every show. We're now in the charts, the top 20 for politics in Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, about which we've spoken this evening, Egypt, and Kenya. And we're in the top 30 for politics in India and Pakistan and New Zealand. How's that for a spread? Scan the QR code now on your screen, download it, and go to the moats.tv website. Let's go to California. Who wouldn't? It's 20 degrees below here in Moscow. California sounds very enticing. Barry wants to talk about geoengineering. Barry, welcome.
Thank you. I have 4 things I want to say, and I promise that I will be concise and very brief. And please bear with me. I've had some interference on my phone. So first of all, George, because I care about you, I want to add that I forgot to complete what I was saying about recommendations for your heart health. The last part that I left out, I want to clarify that I was having painful heart palpitations that were very scary several times, and I merely took 1 or 2 capsules of powdered hawthornberry in capsules. You can buy them at the natural food store, and it eliminates all my symptoms in minutes. It eliminated them all in minutes.
Thank you very much, Barry. Most kind.
Right. I've been a health practitioner professional almost 50 years. I wrote a brief poem. It's just 7 lines. I want to do this before geoengineering with the ironic title of Surgical Strike. Future wars can start at 7:30. All be dead at noon. Backups can pick up the pieces, and the rest go home for dinner. Corpses of our sons for supper. No need to negotiate. Weapons of power decide our fate.
Wow. How somber, but how accurate.
Thank you. So please don't let me go after geoengineering, because I had a dream about you and Gayatri that you and everyone is really going to get a kick out of. All right, so briefly about geoengineering. Let me take a sip of water. The government and corporate crass media talk about geoengineering as if it's something being considered to begin experimenting with in the future. America's foremost expert on geoengineering, Dane Wigington, explains in his excellent film, The Dimming, and I really urge everyone to watch The Dimming if you haven't already. Anyone who thinks that chemtrails are a conspiracy theory, this film, he says it's been going on since 1947, but much ramped up in this century. Contrails are thin and dissipate within minutes, and I have many photographs. Chemtrails expand and spread out over the sky for hours. Wigington conducted professional scientific lab testing using numerous jets sampling the air at 12,000 meters or 40,000 feet where the chemtrails appear. And then on the ground, he analyzed many times over decades, that they contain aerosols of aluminum, carbon graphene, and barium, which my chemistry partner used to call me, and even viruses and bacteria, as well as nanoplastics, supposedly to reflect sunlight, and cool the earth, while the corporations continue to burn fossil fuels and so forth. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. Please watch The Dimming if you haven't had a chance yet. And I'm going to.
I think we've all taken note of that, Barry.
Yes, thank you. All right, so the dream.
Now tell me about this dream. You had a dream.
I had a dream a few mornings ago before I woke up, George, that you almost died. I watched you riding a rhinoceros at the end of the Moats program on the telly I was watching. And then the rhinoceros approached a cliff by the ocean, stopped, the animal kicked up its hind legs, and you went flying over the cliff. And a few seconds later, I heard a splash of the ocean below. Then, coincidentally, I was at the house where these men carried you in onto a bed. And Gayatri and I thought that maybe you weren't alive. We couldn't tell any breathing. But then Gayatri, who was weeping much, and I nursed you back to health over many minutes. And soon you were breathing, sitting up, walking around the house, which is to say, I love you, man.
By the grace of God, I survived that rhinoceros kick and the drop into the ocean. You're a beautiful man, Barry, in California, a beautiful place, and a very important call it was too. Thank you, Barry, and God bless you for your kindness. Mark Adams says, I love listening to Seyed Marandi, the man who gives a true representation of Iran, and changed my opinion from what the Western media says. That's absolutely correct. No one can meet, I can promise you that. Not everyone's going to be able to meet him, but meeting him is special indeed. But no one can watch him on television at length, dealing with the savage beasts of the Western media, and not come away thinking, my goodness, that man is a class act. And it is now officially closed, the poll. 40,000 people have voted. That is a big poll. And I'm afraid the Russiagators have been humiliated. Back to the comments. Jack Klugman, great name, says Pam Bondi has the sour face of a virulent yeast infection. Oh my God. I wouldn't like to go home to her with a short pay, as we say in Glasgow. And Skibby says, Iran was promised to Bibi by his daddy 4,000 years ago. And Tia Sasha says, why does no one in Westminster call for an inquiry into how many MPs have taken Israeli lobby money? Because they've all taken Israeli lobby money. And Constructive Economics 6733 says the idea of Lebensraum was not unique to Nazi Germany, but reflects a broader pattern of Western expansion. Madeline is in Hertfordshire, and she wants to talk about Epstein and the Clintons. I'm all ears, Madeline.
Hiya, George. Thank you for having me on this show. And yeah, I noticed that as soon as the latest documents dropped, Bill and Hillary Clinton very quickly said they wanted to testify. They don't want it to be behind closed doors because that would be a kangaroo court. However, I've been around long enough to remember the last time that Bill Clinton testified. He did a global White House briefing, and he said he did not have bleep relations with that woman. And I'm sure that Hillary remained silent on the issue. So my question is, I know a leopard can change its spots, but are we really to believe that given he could sit there and lie to the world and look that camera straight in the eye, can we really believe anything he now says about Epstein?
Well, I wouldn't believe Bill Clinton about anything. If he told me it was dark outside, I would look outside and check. This is a serial liar, deceiver, a corrupt individual to the nth degree, a man who already has been outed as a sexual predator, as a rapist, and the only open question is whether he's guilty of sexually exploiting girls that were not of legal age. It seems likely that both him and Donald Trump would not have turned away from the opportunity to sexually exploit young girls. Both of them have long and colourful track records as sexual predators of girls who were there either because they were forced or were trafficked or were bribed to be there. These people had the sex lives that they had, not because of any great sexual prowess on their part or any magnetic personality that they might have had, but because of their great wealth and, in Clinton's case and now Trump's case, great wealth and power. They were grabbing people by the pussy because they could, and because they inhabited a culture of misogyny, of women hating, that found such a thing appealing. I have loved women for a very, very long time. I could never imagine the attraction of having one's way with a woman against her will, having sex with someone who didn't want to have sex with you. It's beyond my ken. And but not them. For them, life has been a tableau, a smorgasbord of women to exploit and to degrade. And I have no doubt or little doubt that Bill Clinton, if he does testify in public, will lie through his teeth, as he did when he told us that he did not have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky, when, of course, we now know he very definitely did. Many thanks, Marlon. Now you can join the big donors tonight. I mentioned them by donating any amount, £1, €1, $1, 10, 20, or any amount you like. You can get your name up in lights on Sunday's show by making a quick donation. Just like David Mitchell, Christopher Webb, Bruce Marmee, Carlos Sanchez, and a big thanks to Dr. Gary Bonsall, who made a number of very generous donations this week to the show. A big thanks to all of you, and a big thanks to all of you who are going to donate at the end of the show, I'm sure. Shaquille is in England, in Southend-on-Sea, but wants to talk about Epstein. This is truly the global university of the airwaves. Shaquille, welcome.
Thank you very much, George. It indeed is a university of global sort of magnitude. George, I've been wondering how these wonderful, so-called wonderful, powerful leaders of the world have been backing Israel, seeing with their naked eyes how they have been exploiting people in Gaza, how they've been butchering people, kids, women, everybody, and still they've been backing Israel now. After these Epstein files, which are obviously not revealed in totality, but whatever has been revealed so far, it makes it very clear, to my understanding at least, that these people have been blackmailed. I mean, they have been initially put into a condition where they obviously did something which obviously was very shameful, and now they have been in a condition, obviously, through these web of spies that they just cannot escape. They don't really have a choice. So they either, toe their norms, their sort of stake, or they would be exposed. And obviously no one wants to be exposed the way they actually involved all these in these activities. So, to my understanding,
well, look,
Shakil,
Shakil, I'm 100% with you, and I have some experience of observing people who have been compromised and who have acted for many years, decades thereafter, because of the compromise that they know a foreign power has on them. I have known quite a few, actually, in the Labour Party when I was in it, in the Parliament when I was in it, and I can easily tell how they came to the political positions, opinions that they have. But they're not all compromised. For others, it's cash. It's cash or compromise. And of course, the receiving of cash, especially if done illicitly, in contravention of the law, in contravention of electoral law, is itself compromising. So by the mere act of receiving cash in brown bags, in small suitcases or large suitcases, is itself a compromising situation. And its revelation would be ruinous, disastrous. Your election might be set aside. You might never be allowed to stand for election again. You might never be in a position to be elected again if it were revealed that you had received thousands of pounds from Israel and its lobby that you did not declare, and that would render your election null and void. So it's cash and compromise. There will be one or two, but it's only that, who have a genuine, uncontaminated belief in the racial, ethno-religious superiority of the Israeli settlers. But there can't be many of those. Perhaps more in the United States, where a cod Reader's Digest version of the Bible appears to have been absorbed by evangelicals, by fundamentalists, and so you may say that in the United States there is a cod, fake theological paradigm which could explain the fanatical pro-Israel stance. But in Britain, where you're from and where I'm from, such phenomenon really doesn't exist. Most of the support for Israel was cemented by cash or compromise, and the overwhelming majority of it was. Now, I have no idea about conservatives and their relations, though there are as many supporters of Israel on the Conservative Party side, the Liberal side, the Scottish Nationalist side, and increasingly the Reform Party side. Reform have signed up now to all of the main tropes: anti-Russian, anti-Iranian, pro-Somaliland, anti-Muslim, and of course anti-Russian and anti-Chinese. Reform are away the trip. They have joined the people that they used to call the establishment. But the Labour Party I know intimately. I was a member of it for 36 years, and so I should know what I'm talking about. Now, I never was a student, but I was close enough to know that the Labour Students' Organisation was the main recruiting ground, that the Israelis offered Labour students money and opportunities, trips to Israel, to the kibbutz, to the beaches in Tel Aviv, and gave them access to the pretty girls or to the pretty boys, and no doubt photographed and videoed the resulting couplings, as well as handing a big envelope of cash over as the student leader was leaving. Now, imagine if that was, I better not name names, but somebody who then became not just a student leader, but became a member of parliament, became a government minister, maybe in the Foreign Office, maybe even became Prime Minister. And when they were 19 or 20, they had been compromised. It would only require a loose or casual word to be dropped to allow that person to know that the compromising of them was on record, was on file, was on tape, was on hard disk, and that could find its way to their partner, their wife, their husband, their constituency association, or to the media, or any other way. So cash, compromat, and in the US, maybe a bit of cod theology. That explains it, Shaquille. Now, we have a Workers' Party event tomorrow. You can tune in to Campaign Talk at 9 p.m. UK time. My colleague Mark Belshaw will be speaking with guests Saqib Javid, and it's streaming live on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. That's Campaign Talk tomorrow, the 12th of February at 9 p.m. Which reminds me, it's pretty soon, it'll be Valentine's Day, which is a good segue to introduce the woman without whom the news wouldn't be the news. Here's my good wife, Gayatri. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Well, I was thinking, as we are here in Russia today and China tomorrow, it is really the case that the US is, the West is very much focused on the proxy wars around Russia, but let's not forget about Asia. Let's not forget about the final, the ultimate goal, as we are always saying, which is China. Recently, yesterday, the 10th of February, the US Senate approved the bill called Protect Taiwan. Only yesterday this happened. And this is the kind of bill that came prior to the Ukraine war. It's the same kind of setup that the US is preparing themselves for in creating these proxy wars. And in the case of Asia, there are lots and lots of elections coming up this year, which will be a good way for them to get their hands into them. Only last week, we had, of course, the elections in Thailand, with the results being overwhelming and lots of accusations of fraud, and no one is clear where they're standing. But what is very clear is that Thailand has for a while been pivoting towards China, and of course is its main and most important partner in trade, in defense, in infrastructure is China. And of course the US is very unhappy about this. The US is trying to create a kind of second Philippines in Asia by influencing the elections in Thailand. And then there's more coming up.
But they failed, didn't they, Gayatri? The US-backed putsch failed in Thailand. I know they haven't given up and they're alleging fraud and all the rest, but it was quite a setback for them, I think. It was
because the military is still there, and of course the recent standoff with Cambodia has helped, of course, the current party to win in its, building of its nationalism. It's the military and the monarchy in Thailand that are the main obstacles for the US to put their tentacles into its system. Other than that, the US is pretty much all over Thailand in terms of its media sphere, its educational systems and think tanks. It's all over there, but getting through the military and monarchy, that's a tough one.
Where we our studio in Shanghai, we have a lot of good friends there, and we will be returning there pretty soon. And we discovered that the main strength of China is that they have sovereignty. They have information sovereignty. They are not prey or plagued by hostile sources of information trying to regime change them. And that's partly because of smart intelligence and security precautions, but it's mainly because most Chinese people only want to deal with Chinese media.
Yeah, and in general, I mean, they talk about the Great China Firewall, right? Russia has that as well, by the way. I mean, Russia is also, they protect their information space very well indeed. And it's very important. In many ways, lots of countries do not regard their information space the same way as they regard their land borders, their airspace, the shores, whereas this is part of your sovereignty, your digital sovereignty. And this is what, especially in Asia, wink, wink, need to look after, your digital sovereignty.
So that's the Thailand election, but there are others, aren't there?
Yes.
There's one in Bangladesh.
Coming up in Bangladesh.
Up now.
And there was another one, Nepal, I think, as well. So these are all coming up. Nepal will be in March, I believe.
Okay.
So we'll be looking out.
We'll keep a close eye on them. I've got a legend on the line, Gayatri. Shall I thank you and go to the legend that is May in Oklahoma on Melania. Now, Melania's movie has bombed this side of the Atlantic. May, how is it done in the U.S.?
Hi, George. Well, apparently it's doing okay. Critically bombed, of course, but I guess a few people are buying tickets. But that is not the thing I'm really focusing on today. And I don't know if you heard about this. I've heard it from two different sources now. And I heard that Melania testified to the U.S. Supreme Court. She waived marital privilege in order to do it. They subpoenaed her, but she went willingly, and they were asking her about financial dealings of the Trump dynasty. And not only did she answer their questions, she brought more information about basically money laundering and the Trump company, the Trump family, taking frozen assets and putting them into accounts around the world. And Melania was just given papers to sign, she says, and was told, oh, no, this is all legal. Just sign it. And when she got a subpoena, she realized that maybe it wasn't all legal. Now, according to one of the sources I heard, the Supreme Court issued warrants for the arrest of those attorneys who told her it was all legal and who were sitting at the Supreme Court while she was testifying. I heard that she testified from 7 in the morning until 6 p.m. And nobody is talking about it except these two different independent journalist groups that I heard from. And so I don't know if you haven't heard about it. Maybe you could check into it. But
no, but you've got all of us talking about it now. It would, of course, be a nuclear bomb going off in the middle of the Trump family. I can see circumstances in which it could happen. The Trump family must now be limbering up for the day that he shuffles off this mortal coil, especially if his health is as bad as I believe it is. And there are many billions at stake. I mean, there's a great Netflix show called, it was actually a Sky Atlantic show called Succession, which is based on Rupert Murdoch and his grasping big family of grifters. But the Trump family knocked that into a cocked hat. The Trump family make Murdoch's family look like the Von Trapp family. They are just about as divided and as potentially likely to fall out about Trump's money and his empire as any I can ever imagine. They are an accident waiting to happen. And maybe Melania feels that she does not get the respect that she deserves, and that will be reflected in the post-Trump era. That would be a credible theory. but we'll definitely all be checking it out, May. It would certainly make for a frosty Valentine's Day in the White House on Valentine's Day. Is it on Saturday? Which reminds me, I better get my own arrangements for Valentine's Day in place. I know that in Moscow, Valentine's Day is quite a big thing. The original bones of Saint Valentine are held in a church in Glasgow, which I frequently visited. So I've actually more or less touched the bones of the original Saint Valentine, and a fine man he was too. Thanks very much for joining us. It's been marvelous for us. Hope it was for you. Thanks to all my family and friends for making this show possible. Thanks to you for watching it. And if I may, once upon a time, I was happy to get 1 million views. Now I'm looking for 10 million. Please help me. It's been marvelous.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.